Hello fungi friends, I'm going to cook these chanterelles up with some okra and other veggies into some kind of like fritter slash pancake slash hush puppy kind of Indian inspired sort of thing. So I'll be using some garbanzo flour, some cornmeal, and a little bit of AP flour plus some Indian spice mixtures and stuff like that. So I'll probably try to figure out how to put some of these little eggplants in there too, which are also hallmark of Indian cuisine. Off on the side, I am just browning a couple of onions because good, deep, caramelized onion flavor is a big part of what makes Indian food so good. I had an Indian lab mate in graduate school, and I had a lot of questions for her about like why is Indian food so tasty, and how do they use the spices and what are the techniques, and definitely one of her main tips to me was just caramelize your onions. Okay. Alright, I almost didn't make this and I was going to cave and just order a burrito, but I decided to live stream, and I'm trying this here on YouTube. I know that in real time I won't have as many viewers as I would on like TikTok or Instagram or something like that, where I have thousands more followers. But on YouTube you can watch it later, and hopefully someone does. I get asked a lot, what I cook with mushrooms, and although there are like literally hundreds of hours of that. Wait, hang on, listen to this. You hear crisp? This chanterelle is. Oh, that's such a nice one. All right, there's hundreds of hours of cooking videos of me online already, but people always want new content. Run the content mill. So here I am, even though I didn't super feel like being on a live stream, but I thought it'd be fun to kind of break out some chanterelles, so that's what I'm doing. This is probably my sort of favorite way to just quickly cut up a bunch of chanterelles. Just do this little, pull them apart by hand kind of thing. You can use a knife too, it just affects the texture. You get a different mouthfeel when you have the long fibers in the mushroom versus cutting across them, where you end up with sort of a more tender thing. So this will have more like a shredded chicken kind of texture in the little thing that I'm making. Yeah, I'm not totally sure if I want to go kind of pancake with it or if I want to make them more hush puppy. Probably has to do with the amount of oil I use to fry them, really. God, some of these shanties are very thick. Thick boys. Yeah, some of these I may actually want to use a knife to cut through. This one, I remember this one. This one was really thick, all like compressed down under a log. Yeah, I found a lot of chanterelles. I had to actually stop. There's not too many mushrooms that I actually get defeated by. I picked so many of them, like, I'm done, I can't care anymore. And chanterelles are one that does happen to me with shanties. So when you start really seeing them in this habitat and you realize they're just friggin' everywhere, it's hard to turn off the desire to pick them. But at some point you're like, I've got enough. Leave it for the woods, leave it for other foragers, leave it for the animals. And it's not that hard. It's just like when you keep seeing a nice one, the inclination is to like bend over and be like, ooh. So you got to put on the blinders at some point. Feel very lucky, grateful to have time to go get these, and the knowledge and experience to ID them. Very, I don't know, grateful and appreciative of nature in general for like being such an amazing resource and place to go, and good for our mental health, and all the sort of practices and stuff honored with the honorable harvester stuff that I think about when I'm out in the woods and I'm taking food from wild places. All right, that's a lot of chanterelles. I think that's probably enough. I don't think I need to cook more. This is a pretty good panful. Oh, okay, hang on. Some stuff under my island. Scoop things around. Okay. It's been a while since I did a cooking live stream, so I'm a little out of practice on how to do things here. We're gonna have to pull the phone back so it doesn't get all overheated, because that does happen sometimes. I'm going to do some other veg prep on the side. I've got some caramelized onions here that I will use inside of my fritter mixture. I'm just going to start putting that together off screen. I'll show you what I put in there. I'm going to go ahead and cut through some of these okra pods and just cut kind of like little rings across the pod. Cutting the okra fairly small here because I want it to cook and then not be too gooey in my fried fritter. Okay, so very important thing that's happening here with these mushrooms. I'm doing what's called a dry saute. So I put all of these chanterelles in here with no oil or butter. There's no fat in the pan. And all the water that's coming out of them is a good thing. I soaked them in water to get them clean, and now I'm cooking all that water out. So I'm adding some salt here to help draw out the water. And once they've fully cooked down, and all that water's cooked out, then I'll go ahead and add some oil and start browning them. And then after like 10 minutes of browning, that's when you would add some butter, some thyme, some sherry, all that kind of thing to like really zhuzh them up and make them chefy. Okay, so I'll let these cook, cut in my okra, and get my other veg ready. Show you guys what it looks like to cut up a couple okra pods. Okra is a really interesting vegetable. It's kind of slimy inside, but I really like it, and a lot of places around the world eat a bunch of it. In America, it's eaten in the South, and then often immigrants, Ethiopians, and Indian people eat a lot of okra, for sure. Oh, hey, honey badger. Cat's underfoot. Okay. Go. Okra sliced. We'll put in a few more pods here. I'm trying to use up some nice okra that I bought at the farmer's market. So as just so you see, the chanterelles have gotten really soupy. So there's a ton of liquid in there right now. And that's okay. All that liquid will cook off, and it'll concentrate the flavor and really get them well cooked too. Steaming your mushrooms down in sort of a wet saute like that is really critical to making sure they get crispy later on. If you don't squeeze all the water out, your mushrooms will always be slimy. So if you put them in a bunch of oil or butter to start, and then they get all soupy like this, you'll never cook all that water off, because the oil will be kind of holding the water inside the mushroom. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make when they're cooking wild mushrooms, chanterelles especially. It took me a while to figure it out, but now I know. Sorry, I went outside to get a couple of peppers, so looking for those. Add a little bit of color. That's still cooking down. Okay, let's slice up a couple of colorful little eggplants. In Indian food, I've seen these a lot, sort of like cut into little quarters, and they like fry them and then stuff them with spices and stuff. They're really good. Because these are gonna be in a batter kind of thing. I want to cut pretty small pieces so that they'll get cooked evenly. I want there to be a much higher ratio of okra to eggplant, so I'm not going to put that much eggplant in. Just one or two more of these little guys. Be careful when slicing these, because these things have little fairy eggplants with fairly tough skins. It's easy for your knife to kind of get caught. Okay. Chanterelles are still sweating down there. Okay. So we got our veg prep done for okra and eggplants. And I'll cut up a couple of peppers here. I need to be really careful, remember to not touch my eye after touching these peppers. One of these is kind of sweet. This orange one's pretty sweet, but that red one is hot. It's like a Fresno or a jalapeno or something like that. And it can have some serious spice. Ooh, yeah, I can smell the capsaicin coming off that one. That one's got some nice heat to it, but I'm just going to pull off the ribs and the seeds to make it a little less aggressive. peek in on the shanties there. That water's still boiling away, but it's getting there. Give it a little mix around. There's not too much more water to cook off, so I'll add the oil soon. And then as I'm going to let those kind of brown up, and as they're cooling down a little bit, I'm going to put together the batter and get ready to fry off a sort of a test batch of that, and I'll show you guys that. And then afterwards, I'm going to probably sign off and actually go cook most of the stuff. But I kind of want to show you guys the recipe component, the making of, as it were, minus maybe the actual full making of, because sometimes frying a bunch of stuff takes a while and it's hot. I almost bailed on this and just went and bought a burrito, and I was like, no, do the fancy thing, take care of yourself, make some nice food. So, okay, I will. But gosh darn it, I still kind of want a burrito. But I'm gonna make the fancy thing. That's good for me. Okay, so this is besan or farina de chichi. It's chickpea flour, garbanzo beans, dried and powdered, I believe. I don't know if they cook it at all, but I'm just gonna put in a good amount. And put in a good amount of cornmeal. Yellow cornmeal. We should add a little more. I'll just use this whole bag because you always need more batter than you think you will anyhow, right? So let's go hard. Whole bag of the chickpea flour and a bunch more corn, and then probably some AP wheat flour. So I'm just going to use about 1/3 of each kind of thing. This bowl is going to get very full by the time I'm done here. We'll make it work, or we won't. Oh dear, I'm making a mess of my flour. Okay, great. Love that I just got flour on my floor. All right, fantastic. That's what you get for cooking live. Hang on, I gotta grab a couple of things to stir this up, and then I'll show you how I'm gonna season this. Okay, let's bring you back to the chanterelles. Ooh, I'm so sorry. Excuse me. Get oriented. Okay, there's some chanterelles. So now they have fully dried out, and they're just barely starting to stick to the pan, which is exactly when I want to add the oil. See, they're getting all shreddy, and that browning is sticking them to the bottom of the pan, and that's when they get really delicious. So a little spooch of a high temperature oil there. I think I usually use peanut, but like any veg oil would work. Soybean, canola, corn, avocado oil, any one of those. Don't use olive oil or butter at this stage because you're still going to want to brown them pretty aggressively. But I am going to turn the heat down just a bit, and I'm going to do one more seasoning here. So usually I do about 3 seasons. Like one, I put salt on when I put them in the pan at first to help draw the water out. I season them again at this point with the oil because that's when the salt's really going to kind of enter and flavor the mushroom. And then at the very end, I'll add a little bit of like a Maldon, some sort of textural finishing salt to like give them that last little bit of unctuousness and pizzazz that you want mushrooms to have. Okay, here's my flour mixture. I'm just going to whisk that together until it's kind of homogenized and even in color, and then I will start adding other seasonings to it. It's hot outside, still hot in Napa, which is weird, and just in time for fire season. There's a giant fire up in Calistoga that I'm pretty worried about. It's not near me at this moment, but it's not contained, and it's you know, not far from where I live. So let me know if you guys have seen me cooking live before. I used to do a lot of this on TikTok, but I'm trying to do more stuff on YouTube these days and maybe build a little bit community here that I haven't had in the past. So for the people watching, thank you for joining me. I'm making these sort of Indian-inspired, like, hush puppy fritter type things. I'm not quite sure how this is all going to come together. I'm just putting a bunch of stuff into batter, and then I'm going to put it in a pan in hot oil and see how it shapes, and that's how I'm going to eat it. And I'll probably serve it with some sort of, like, hot sauce or yogurt or sour cream or some sort of delicious dipping thing. I've done a lot of versions of this. Usually I do it with, like, grated zucchini when I have huge zucchinis, which I do have huge zucchinis, but I have more okra pods that I bought because I like okra, but I've just been uninspired to cook this week, and so I'm like, I gotta do something. As I was saying earlier, I really just want to go eat a burrito, but I was like, I'm gonna force myself to make this. And you guys are part of how I'm keeping myself accountable to eating healthy by trying to cook food from my garden and stuff that I forage. So those look pretty great. I'm actually gonna turn the heat off. And we'll turn my attention back to the flour mixture, but we're going to let those just kind of chill and sizzle and do the thing. I'll come back to them in a second. Okay, so let's start seasoning this up. Okay, so number one trick when making this kind of thing is I use a bunch of porcini powder. So here's what that looks like. It's just bags of dried porcini that look like this. So I take bags full of dried porcini, put them in my Vitamix, and I have a dry goods attachment, and I powder them into this stuff. So I add a lot of porcini powder for doing this kind of thing because I want a lot of that umami, and this is just packing in several mushrooms worth of dried spores and all the goodness in a porcini. So mix that in a little bit. Also use a little bit of this like commercial mushroom powder, which is essentially salt and maltodextrin, sugar, mushroom powder, yeast extract. It's a lot of sort of like MSG type stuff too. I just want this to be really tasty. I like really tasty food, and mushrooms make stuff real tasty. And I'm gonna use a pretty good amount of salt. Probably more than I honestly think I'm gonna need. So I'm just put the rest of that in there. And these are my dry goods. I've got a couple of like more wet good type things. Let's see, that's a big piece of porcini powder. Okay. There we go. Alrighty. Ooh, I have an idea to use for the liquid. I was just thinking water's kind of boring. What can I use that would be more exciting? Well, I'll show you. I've got this like pressed coconut milk stuff, coconut water. I think that would be a good liquid. It's got some calories and some richness, so I think it'll be a little more interesting than just using plain water. I'm also going to use some of this garam masala curry paste that I kind of liquidized a little while ago. Still smells fine. I think that'll be good. This will bring a lot of flavor to the party, so I'm not sure how much more like dried spice I need to add. But I will put in a healthy dose of this organic sambar powder. It's relatively spicy, and it's got some, let's see, coriander, chili, Bengal, well, more chickpea, turmeric powder, fenugreek, salt, black pepper. So it's just got a little extra zing and color. There we go. Hit this with a dose of curry powder too. And a nice healthy dose of my chili flakes. I made these almost a year ago, but they're still really vibrant and nice. I just took all the like super red ripe chilies from my yard that I got lazy about picking, kind of ones that look like these, and I dried them out and I let them sit around for like a year, but then I powdered them up and I have this really beautiful, fresh, incredible chili powder that I really like, and it's like a mixture of a lot of different peppers, so it's really fruity and dynamic. Okay, we'll stir all this dry stuff in here. One more. I have this like organic, or no, it's not organic. What is this? This is ramp powder. I think this is dried ramp powder. So I just want to put some more oniony goodness in here. There we go. A little bit of green. And koji salt. This is koji from Shared Cultures. So it's sort of like the Aspergillus oryzae starter culture salt stuff. Anyhow, mix this all up, and then we will liquidize this and add our veg and figure out how to fry this up. I gotta chop up some green onions here too. A bunch of these. So. Okay, do we think this is going to taste good? I don't know. I hope so. Let's go for it. Oh, I know what I need. I need some eggs, too. Yeah. I could make this vegan, but I don't need to. So I won't. Ooh, I might put a couple of... a little scoop of some ginger paste in there, too. That sounds fun, right? Yeah. Scoop of ginger paste. Theory, I could also put in like, a scoop of garlic paste, but this is what I got right now. This is what I have the energy for, so I'm gonna go with an egg. Okay. So we got that kind of coconut water stuff. You got some ginger. I could add something like miso too. There's all sorts of options you could put here. I think I'm gonna add some baking soda too. Better yet, some baking powder. Not a whole lot, but some. Oh, that's probably plenty. It'll give us some rise, both now when it gets wet and when it gets hot. The dual action kind. Baking soda and baking powder can also help with browning, because they cross-link bases and make them, more whatever, apt to undergo Maillard reactions, I guess is what I'm trying to think of. Oh wait, okay, in with the green onions. Okay, little stir. I might add just a little more liquid here too. I want to overshoot. Oops, that might have been overshooting. I just want it liquid enough that I can kind of get everything incorporated without mashing it around too much. It looks close. Hoping the veg doesn't bleed too much liquid, because they can do that. Okay, and then piece de la resistance. The Chanterelles. Yes, might as well use all of them. That's what they're here for. That's what I cooked them for. Okay, that looks pretty cool, eh? Ooh, and gotta get these nice little caramelized onion bits. Now, oh shoot, I know what I forgot to add. I forgot to add this curry paste stuff in. That's also liquid, so we're gonna see how that works. Okay. Now I just stirred this up until it's somewhat homogeneous. And you could add all sorts of any mixture like this. You could do zucchini, you could do corn. I often flavor this with like lots of curry powder. This is just kind of like what I have the ingredients and energy for at the moment. But it's building on lots of principles in Indian cooking and, you know, cooking in general. Okay, this thing might not be ideal. Let's use my spatula, which is better suited to a thick, chunky mixture like this. This is too prone to getting just stuff junked up in it. Okay. So this is nice and thick. Real nice and thick, I suppose. Could make it gloopier, but let's try a test fry and see how it works out. That's what I promised you guys. Okay. How long have we been doing this? Been on here about half an hour? Okay. Well, this is where we taste for seasoning and texture of the batch, and so usually that first fry can be a little wonky, but we'll give it a shot and see how it is. You know, it looks like a pretty nice mixture, and there's chanterelles and okra and eggplant and peppers and green onion and onion in there. I probably could have added some squash, like I said, but let's try this out and see how it is. I'm just preheating the pan behind me and putting some oil in it. What I want to figure out is how to scoop this. I guess I'll cook them a little more like a pancake, just because I don't, if I got like a deep thing of oil, I could like fry them in kind of like little hush puppy things, and it'd be useful to use like a ice cream scoop or a spoon or something to make a canal and put it in there. But I think for not having to heat up a huge thing of hot oil in my house on a very hot summer day, I might just kind of splat this into the pan and flatten it out a little bit. So we'll see how this works. Just a scoop and get that flattened out a bit so there's like more surface area. Scoot in anything that doesn't fit. I'll do another little spoot, little plute, spooty plute. Ugh. You're a gooey guy, aren't you? Okay. We'll leave it alone. Alright, we're gonna get some oil around that. And I know they want to be friends. I know they want to connect, but like two horny teenagers in class, we gotta have them separate just a little bit, or they'll get stuck together. Okay, and we're off. We're gonna fry. So those are my fritters with the okra and the eggplant and the peppers and the chanterelles. That's pretty great. Glad I rallied and decided to make something tasty instead of just giving in to the desire to go get a burrito. Which I still have a desire to get a burrito. I might do that tomorrow, but right now we're gonna eat some fritters. So if you guys are tuning in from other countries, which I have a good feeling a fair number of you are, tell me where you're at. I'm in California. Where are you guys in the world? There's at least a couple comments there I'm guessing are from Thailand or Vietnam, somewhere in Southeast Asia. So I'm just getting under this a bit to make sure it's not sticking as it's cooking. That's the point of using hot oil. Hot oil is supposed to help make a crust that stops this from getting all sticky. I've done this a lot with other mushrooms that are not chanterelles. I've used maitake for this, I've used beach mushrooms, normally commercial mushrooms that don't have quite as much moisture in them. And so I think that's why I felt like I wanted to cook the chanterelles ahead of time. Because if I put uncooked chanterelles into this dish, they would have bled way too much liquid and these sort of fritters would have fallen apart. Instead, it's a really nice, you know, cohesive mixture that's getting nicely browned. You want to get the oil all over these guys. This is not a time to be stingy on the oil. Even after you put them in the pan, sometimes it's worth just a tiny bit more on the side that when you flip it. Otherwise, they always end up being a little bit lighter brown. And after I flipped them, I'm going to mostly leave them alone. And this, you can see this one kind of like trying to fall apart a little bit, so I kind of want to encourage it to stay together. Right after you flip them, you want to leave them alone, because that'll allow them to kind of like form a crust and get a little cohesive there. You can also, I have another pan, so I might end up doing like cooking 2 pans worth of these at once, just to get through this. And then these will, once they cool down, you toss them in a Tupperware, keep them in the fridge, eat them all week. If you want, you can put them in the toaster oven to kind of heat them up. You can just microwave them or just pan fry them quickly. And I like serving them with yogurt, with hot sauce. Hell, you can even use them as like a healthy sandwich bun if you want to like put some stuff in between it. If you get some leftover grilled chicken, put it in between one of these guys, dress it up with some sauce, you know, a couple of fresh herbs. I bet that would be delicious. It makes me sad that people don't eat enough vegetables or fiber, and it can be such an amazing, tasty, great part of your life and how you eat, but so many people are used to sort of just having, you know, like plain processed bread or something like that, which I love, but even this would be a great patty inside of like a, you know, a hamburger bun. Wouldn't have quite the protein content of meat, but still pretty satisfying. They do vegetable fritter stuff like this in India a lot for vegetarian options. Okay. So that looks pretty good. I'm just going to let the other side fry for a second, but I turned off the heat and I'll let it sit. Make sure that okra heats through there, gets a little cooked. Oh, someone from Brazil. Hello. Okay, those are looking pretty good. Sure, Ariel, I'd be happy to share. I'm gonna end up with way too much. I can't eat everything I'm making. Also, I just remembered I wanted to put some of these pickled onions in here, so I'm gonna stir these into the rest of the batch, and I think for these ones I'll just put a little pickled onion on top. Okay, pull these off. Just putting these on piece here. You see the colors, nice and golden brown, and green from the okra, and a little orange and red from the peppers, bits of green onion. How do I want to dress this up? Okay, just grabbed a little bit of sour cream and hot sauce. I'm going to try some plain, so I'll get a sense of what the baseline is. It's pretty hot. Let it cool down just a second so I don't burn my tongue. Often when it comes out of the fryer off of hot oil, I like to sort of just sprinkle just a tiny bit of salt over the top as well. Okay, so there's the okra, nice and steamy. Batter looks pretty good and crunchy. Give it a taste. Okay. Yeah. It still has, you know, okra-like texture. And if you don't love okra, you might not love this, but I love okra. And it's not like too slimy because they're all pretty small pieces. The batter is crispy, crunchy. The flavor is spot on. It tastes kind of like curry, you know. It's really nice. It's hot. The chanterelles give a really nice meatiness to it. Wow. That's exceptional. I love it. Okay, let's put a little bit of the onion on here. I'm gonna engineer myself a bite. A little sour cream. All the old tapatio. Use whatever hot sauce you like. This is what I got on hand. And we'll try this. Must be so open. We'll try this as a bite. So, nice little tailored bite. That's yummy. That's really good. Well, hopefully you guys make something like this at home. Again, if you don't like the sliminess of okra, you can easily just swap out shredded zucchini. Beware that shredded zucchini will bleed a little more moisture into the batter, so you're going to make it thick and know that it'll get thinner. If you make it too thin, just add more batter. And if it's too thick, just add more liquid. It's pretty easy. And if it doesn't taste good enough, add more seasoning. If it tastes too seasoned, add more ingredients. You know, you don't really need measurements for this kind of thing. You just got to mess around with it and see what you like. Yeah, this is like one of my favorite ways to cook mushrooms. That's really phenomenal. Super satisfying. And, you know, honestly, pretty easy. And really healthy. I don't work with any flavor profile. I like using Indian spices and flavors for this kind of thing because it you know, the okra feels like it goes with it. But you know, hell, if you want to make this southwestern, add some more peppers and corn and stuff, go for it. Yeah, oysters would be great in this. I know I'm using chanterelles, but really any mushroom probably be pretty good. Especially the meaty, chewy ones like an oyster. Oh, that makes me happy. I'm actually glad I took time to make this. Yum. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, watching me cook. And I'm going to probably sign off and go cook up the rest of this in a big marathon. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day, night, whatever, wherever you are. Remember, this is a great way to cook mushrooms. Make a big old fritter cake. Bunch of chanterelles, okra, peppers, green onions, all the good stuff. All right. Cheers. Bye, guys. Be well.